everyone excited to be here? You guys seem super happy. All right. Well, today I get the pleasure of introducing our speaker. A little housekeeping first. Again, we can't have anyone standing. You need to be sitting. And remember, at the end of this session, you want to be using your app to be rating all of your speakers throughout the day, okay? So everyone's going to be pushing you. App. All right. So let's get started. Today, I get to introduce Amy Vetter. Do you feel like you struggle with finding balance in your life and enough time for yourself? Is it challenging for you to find the right amount of focus on the needs of the people around you? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you've come to the right place. Today, Amy Vetter is here to help us discuss how to apply her B3 method for business, balance, and bliss to our lives. Amy is the author of the book, Business, Balance, and Bliss, How the B3 Method Can Transform Your Career and Life, a TEDx speaker who won the Audience Choice Award for her popular talk called Disconnect to Connect, a columnist for Inc.com and Entrepreneur.com, as well as a host of the Breaking Beliefs podcast, helping people continue their journey to find their life's purpose. And here are a few fun facts about Amy. She's a CPA and a yoga studio owner and instructor in Ohio. She has been recognized multiple times as a top 100 most influential person by Accounting Today and one of the most powerful women in accounting by CPA Practice Advisor. So please help me welcome Amy Vetter to the stage.
Thank you. It's working now. Yeah, thanks. So good to see all of you this morning here ready to figure out how to put some mindfulness in your daily life. And to start off, you heard her talk about a book I wrote called Business, Balance, and Bliss, and I will be at the book signing table, I think today at 12:30 about that book. But I wanted to start off just talking about the methodology and why. And for many of us, helping people through change management or having to guide people that don't necessarily report to us or people that do, but trying to deal with all of the stress of trying to accomplish our own goals in the workplace, but also be able to feel the energy that we want to put out in the world the way that we want to do it, we actually have to start thinking about how we incorporate these things into our day. So I created a methodology just to keep it really easy, and we're going to think through that and how we can use our natural tools to be able to integrate that into our day. So the first piece of it, as you heard, was business. And so these are the activities that we go through striving for success and the work that we do, having stress between different people that we work with and how we deal with that energy and being able to control that. And I use a little model logo for this, and I'll explain it in the end, but that leaf represents business. And then I am an accountant, as you heard, so this is a formula. So what we also need is balance. And a lot of what we're talking about in this session today is balance. And balance are the natural human tools that we have. It's our toolbox that we can pull out during our workday and how we utilize that to control our energy. And if we aren't conscious of it and if we don't practice it, the problem with that is that we show up in a way that we don't want to. Sometimes we come home, complain about everybody else, and then not really think about, well, what did I do to contribute to that outcome? How could I maybe have changed the energy in that conversation or that business situation to make that better? And then the last piece is bliss. And so what bliss is the maintenance of happiness. And with the maintenance of happiness, a lot of times when we hear the word joy or happiness, we think it's something that happens to us, rather than thinking about how we want to feel internally and what we need to be able to do during our day to elicit that feeling inside of us, rather than waiting for it to happen. And the last piece of this model here is the infinity symbol. So I'll explain this. In yoga, a lot of times we use the lotus flower, and what the lotus flower represents is it grows out of the mud, but it grows into something beautiful. And this infinity symbol that is part of this is, how do we maintain that beautiful, that happiness within ourselves throughout our day? And these practices that we are going to do today are some of the natural tools that we can do during our workday to help us find that. So one of the things that happens that we might start noticing is we have this imbalance in ourselves, or maybe we don't notice it until we become aware of it, that we might be working too many hours, we might be being pulled in too many directions, and what happens is that we start becoming unhappy with the things that we're doing, and we don't stop and pause and actually understand what is creating that imbalance for us. And that's the hard work, because it's easier to blame the outside for how we feel internally versus actually stopping, pausing, and trying to understand what's creating that. So for me, this is all about how do we take those pauses in our day, disconnect, and pause, observe how we're feeling so that we can connect to people better. So that could be in the workplace, that could be at home. So how do we shift between those different places that we are through the day to make sure we're doing that? And when we think about our daily lives, we have all of this technology that is keeping us connected, and it's sometimes useless connection that we're not actually looking at how important it is. We look at our phones 150 times a day, which equates to about 2.5 hours. And so when you think about how many times, every time you get a notification, you pop it open, and it's an Office Depot email that is totally unnecessary for you to have even looked at, how can we make sure that we are completely present for the people we are with? And I'll tell you a story that really got to me about this was I went to a funeral of a man that I did not know. So I was working for a company, and one of my coworkers, his brother died. And at the time that his brother died, I was living in South Florida, and his brother had lived in South Florida. So I told my coworker I would go with him to represent the team. His brother was only 47 years old when he died. And people traveled from all over the country to be there for his funeral. And during his funeral, it really impacted me because each person got up to talk about him. But when they got up to speak about him, the first thing that they said was, "He was my best friend." And then by the 8th person getting up to tell their story and saying he was my best friend, it started becoming a joke at the funeral of like, well, I thought he was my best friend, but he was apparently your best friend. And what happened was, when you listened to the actual stories they were telling about him, it was that he was completely present with each person he was with, so everyone had the experience that he was their best friend. One person said, he never wore a watch, but somehow he was always on time and he knew when to leave. And think of that experience that he created and making people feel important. And a lot of times we get distracted in our day when we're meeting with other departments, when we're meeting with our staff, we're meeting with people at home. And the problem is, when we look at that phone, when we get distracted, we give off the message that they're unimportant, even if that's not our intention. And so when we put our human tools in place, use that toolbox, find the things that we're going to try today, and see what might resonate with you and what you could practice on your own, those are the things that start helping us to ground ourselves and be completely present with the people that we're with. So one of the things with mindfulness is that we have these two minds. We have a rational mind and we have an intuitive mind. The rational mind is us saying to ourselves what we should be doing or what we think others think we should be doing. But the intuitive mind is actually telling us how we feel if we listen to it. It is our guide. But a lot of times, we will be in a situation that goes bad, and we'll say afterward, I knew it in my gut, I shouldn't have done that. That's our intuitive mind. There is an animal instinct within us to let us know how we're feeling and which path we walk, and we decide whether we listen to it or not with our rational mind. So with mindfulness, these practices are helping us to uncover that intuitive mind and just observe it. We don't have to action on it, but we can decide what we're going to do about it. Either yes or no. But at least we're aware. And that is the biggest thing that you can take away from today, is not letting life happen to you. It's about being more aware of how you're feeling, how you're experiencing the world, and how the world is experiencing you. And when we create more awareness, then we show up with different energy throughout our day. So what I'd like you to do, believe it or not, when I just said don't look at your phones, is pick up your phone. So I have some interactive questions that are part of today's session. So if you go to amyvetter.com/join session, and then you'll pick this session for today, which is the Practicing Mindfulness session for PMI, and join the session. And what this will do is when I ask questions up here, you'll be able to answer it and it will start populating on the screen. So just one more time, it's amyvetter.com/join session, and then enter in the survey. So I'm going to unlock the first question here and ask you what causes you to not be present at work. And you will start seeing that pop up on your phone where you can answer it. And it's just the first thing that comes to your head. If you missed the web link, it's amyvetter.com/join session. And then you pick and answer the question. And as you answer those questions, it will pop up on the screen. Stress. That is why we're here this morning. So good, you get to start your day. So did you go into the practicing mindfulness one? Yeah. You have to enter into it. Home task. So we know a lot of times that when we're at work, we're actually thinking about other things besides work because we're concerned that we're not getting other things done. Offspring, home life, multitasking. We're going to talk about multitasking because that's actually not a thing. We might think it's a thing, but it's actually not a thing. When others interrupt my attempts at deep work, relationships, I'm bored at work. That's a good one. Too many things to do, competing deadlines, lack of sleep, Instagram. we get that time suck right into social media, feeling like I'm just going through the emotions, distractions, phone calls, politics, lack of emotional intelligence, distractions in the workplace, home responsibilities. So you're seeing, and one of the reasons I asked this question right in the beginning so that you see this up on the screen is that everyone from the outside looks like they have it all together. And this is what's going on internally for everybody as you encounter them in different meetings. We all have these stressors that are sitting inside of us, which actually get in the way of progress, right? In the outcomes that we want at work, when we go back to thinking about striving for what we want in the careers that we do, if we realize that everybody's holding on to this stress internally, how do we start unlocking that in ourselves, better understanding it, so that we can better understand others? So there's 3 ways that we're going to cover today of things that you can do outside of work and inside of work to help you be more aware of what's going on. And so meditation, and we're going to break all these down and we're going to do them. So guess what? You're going to be actively participating this morning. Mantras and mindfulness. And so as we go through these different exercises this morning, what I'd like you to do is see which ones resonate for you. They might not all resonate for you, but there's going to be something where you're like, you know what, I could take that back into my life, but I need to practice it each day to make it real for me. So the first one is meditation. And I can tell you as a yoga studio owner, I have people creeping into the yoga studio, peering into the rooms like what happens there, and they're more afraid of yoga than CrossFit sometimes. And the reason being is that people are afraid to be alone with themselves, right? Those thoughts that come up for us are hard. It takes a lot of courage to just take time alone with yourself, your mind, and whatever thoughts and feelings are happening for you. Now, with meditation, the whole point of meditation is that we get that internal awareness of what's happening for us on the inside. It is not to stop our brain. So a lot of times that's a myth with meditation where someone will try meditation like, I was thinking I was doing it wrong. Our brains think. The practice of meditation is non-judgment. The practice of meditation is to observe what's going on in our bodies. And the reason we want to do that is because when we go into an experience with someone else, and we might have a bad encounter with someone, and we walk away and complain about that encounter that we had with that person, we don't know what we contributed to it unless we're more aware of what's happening internally. And sometimes when we close our eyes and allow that stuff to come up, you're like, really? That's what I was thinking? That's what I was feeling? Like, you're not even aware you're carrying that around during the day. And so there's a practice of noting to help you with the observation of what happens in your body. So rather than judging thoughts or feelings that are coming up for you, instead, what you're going to do is actually when something comes up for you, so maybe you close your eyes and you're like, wow, I'm hungry. I didn't get to eat this morning, and I thought I was going to eat this morning, and all these thoughts start coming up. What you're going to do is pause on that and go, I'm feeling, I'm going to breathe it in, I'm going to let it go. So you're basically labeling the thought of what's coming up for you, okay? Not judging it, but you're like, that's interesting. So I'm going to note that that's inside of me because maybe after meditation, I need to go eat something to change my energy. But there could be all sorts of thoughts that are in there. So what do I need to do to note what is happening in my body and then breathe it out and let it go? So that's the practice. Now, what we're going to do right now is do a short meditation together so that you can feel it. So, and I promise I'll time it. We're not going to go too long, so just trust me. I've got you. So if you can put both feet on the ground and take your hands on your lap. And I'd like you to close your eyes and try to sit back in your chair so you're sitting tall in your chair, that you feel supported. And just start noticing how your body feels on the chair. It might start feeling a little heavy, how your feet feel on the earth, your hands. Just making sure your shoulders are relaxed, your jaws are relaxed. And I just want you to bring full attention to your body right now, maybe scanning it, just starting from your head, drawing down to your cheekbones, to your jaw. to your neck, to your shoulders, your elbows, your hands, your torso, your hips, your knees, your ankles, and your toes. And just let your mind be spacious. And just feel the sensations of your body. And just begin to start slowing down your breath. Counting 1 on your inhale, counting 2 on your exhale. Counting 3 on your inhale, and counting 4 on your exhale. And just keep that count going to a count of 10. When you get to 10, just start the count over. If you notice any thoughts coming up for you, just pause, observe the thought, maybe note it, thinking, feeling, maybe a sensation, and just breathe it in and breathe it out. And then coming back to the count of your breath. Just notice any sounds or feelings or thoughts or expectations that are present. Keep that breath flowing in and out, and just allow yourself to be still. If you see yourself get distracted, note the thought, breathe it in and out. And just slowly let your breath just come back to its natural rhythm. Not trying to hold on to anything. Maybe wiggling your fingers and your toes. And slowly opening your eyes and coming back into the room. Anyone want to share if that felt good, if it didn't feel good, what you might be struggling with it? Hand raised, yes. 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 Yeah. So, for those of you that might have not heard her in the other side of the room, she started putting a meditation practice into her life in the last 6 months, and she's noticed that she has been remembering better, that it's actually bringing her more clarity. And there's studies, the MRIs of the brain, that shows that actually gray matter clears up. Like they can't always explain why meditation works, but it does. And so everything that you're experiencing isn't right. In most research studies, they will say 20 minutes a day. Now that could be 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. It doesn't always have to be one sitting. And I would say with that, because she was saying, I don't always get it in every day. And that is something, this is what Business Balance Bliss is all about. Do not put that pressure on yourself, because if you start putting pressure on yourself like I must do this every day, then it creates stress around the thing that's supposed to release your brain. Okay? So what's important is, within my book, I talk about a concept of work-life harmony, and that's really the ebb and flow of our life, right? Like, we might have 5 minutes today, 20 minutes tomorrow. What's more important is that we did it, and we're not putting pressure on ourselves about it. Now, when you're starting a meditation practice, though, don't put yourself like, I must do 20 minutes, because then you will probably fail immediately at it because you're like, I can't sit here for 20 minutes. It's just like any exercise of your body. You are building your brain muscle that you are going to start building up the stamina of meditation. And what's true about this, though, in our workday, 2 minutes can reset our central nervous system. So we went about 5 minutes. Did you feel a shift in your body? Some, right? Now, when we do that and we actually settle ourselves down in the beginning, you're going to still feel a little antsy, right? Like, it takes a moment that you have to sit with it and not give up. So you give yourself that moment to breathe, to get settled. But if you set a timer for 2 minutes and you give yourself space between meetings, or do it at the beginning of a meeting, this is happening in a lot of corporations right now that are starting meetings like this, that we become more present for the meeting. When you think about our meetings all day long, we're rolling from meeting to meeting to meeting, and then we bring the energy from one meeting into the next meeting, and it just keeps rolling. And so if we had one bad experience, it's like a snowball effect all day long. So if we don't stop and pause and figure out ways to reset ourselves, then we don't show up the way that we want to, or we're saying things that we don't want to say in the next meeting. There's also apps. Does anyone use meditation apps? Yeah, so these apps have 5-minute meditations, 10-minute meditations, 15, 20 minutes, and more. They're guided meditations. And I actually use this. Someone talked about earlier about sleep. That's a big issue for me as well. I use Headspace and Calm, both have sleep meditations. It's a 10-minute meditation that actually walks you through a body scan to help you go to sleep. And typically I fall asleep before it's over. But what it does is actually calm your central nervous system down so that you can just allow yourself to rest. And so it's these little tiny practices. It doesn't have to be a huge thing that we start incorporating into our life, but we have to intentionally do it. We have to pick the one thing that we're going to intentionally try to make a difference. Now, mindfulness is outside awareness. So meditation is the internal awareness. Mindfulness is the outside awareness of how we are creating the energy that with other people we are with, number one. And number two, are we picking up everything that we should be picking up from the people that we're with? So if we get distracted when we're talking to somebody else, we could miss the most important thing that they had to say, or an undercurrent of what they were saying, or body language that would have informed us of a different action we needed to take. But if we're not paying attention, then we miss those things, and it actually affects the work that we do. So the hard part about mindfulness is, again, this practice of non-judgment, all right? That I go into a meeting and I have to be completely present with the person I'm with. So turn off the notifications, the phone goes away, no email notifications while I'm with them. I'm completely with them. I'm grounded. I'm sitting there. The second piece of it is I have to practice acceptance. What does that mean? I don't like that person. I have to accept it. I need to sit there, not judge them, not have a feeling about why they're doing what they're doing. I need to just accept who they are. And then the last piece is have compassion and empathy for their experience. Hard stuff, right? Because what we typically do is say, all of our frustrations is because of somebody else. But when we actually have to go into a meeting, be completely present, accept the way they behave and what they do, and then show compassion toward their experience and not respond. Just take it in. So these are inputs. It's like being a scientist. So I'm observing another person. I'm being completely present with who they are. And I'm not going to respond right away. I'm going to take this information and then decide my actions later. So this is a harder practice, I think, because we already have predetermined opinions about different people. So we have to determine how we're going to go about not doing that. Now, part of what we can do is take mental breaks during the day. So that could be that you do the 2-minute meditation. That could be you just go walk the halls, you go walk outside, whatever you need to do to move, give your brain some space, and allow yourself to shift. So you're going to pause in your day and figure out before you go to your next experience how I'm going to shift my energy through the day. Because you know when you're getting amped up, right? And so it's having that awareness that that's happening so that I can be present with the next person I'm with. Now, there are some things that we can do with our bodies right at our desk as well to give ourselves breaks, and we're going to do it. So just like we did before, I'd like you to take both feet on the floor and sit up against your chair so that you're sitting tall. So again, you just want to make sure like you're giving yourself the space you need to breathe and be present. And the first thing that you would do is start breathing. We forget to breathe during the day. So you can close your eyes, you can do whatever you need, but just start slowing down that breath. Now, what you can do is when you need to slow down that breath, you can say 1 and 2 and instead. So if you count too fast so that you're slowing down that breath as you go. And if you want to move while you do that, you can take this pressure point between your thumb and your pointer finger, and you just make circles. So you just rotate clockwise, and as you rotate one circle, you breathe in, and as you rotate the next circle, you breathe out. And with this pressure point, you can start settling yourself down as well. And you might rotate it one way and rotate it the other way. But just start feeling a little bit of a shift in your body. So after I do that, I'm going to bring my hands back on my knees and still sitting really tall in my chair. I might just take my right ear to my right shoulder and not straining my neck, but just keeping my eyes closed. Just taking a few breaths here. And bring my head back to center and draw my left ear to my left shoulder. And come back to center. And then just draw my chin into my chest, just slowly doing that. And slowly taking your gaze up, take your gaze up toward the ceiling, and just draw your head back. And come back to center, slowly. So we're going to take our shoulders and just take our shoulders in and bring our shoulders back. So just opening our heart and our chest and just giving ourselves just a few little stretches here. And when we do that, we want to do it with our breath. So when we bring our shoulders in, we inhale. And when we take it back, we exhale. And just do 2 more of those. And then we're going to sit back tall in our chair. Now, you can keep both feet on the floor, depending on your flexibility. If you're a little more flexible, you can take that right foot on your left knee. You choose. And you're going to take your left hand to your right knee and just take your right hand to the back of your chair or on your chair and bring your chin over your shoulder, just to give yourself a little bit of a twist. And slowly come back to center. You're going to switch sides and bring that left hand behind, right hand to your left knee, and look over your shoulder. And come back to center. Now, if your coworkers don't think you're too strange, you can take your right arm up and just bring your left hand onto the chair and just draw it over your ear and take your gaze up toward the ceiling. Just opening your side body. And just breathe here, inhaling and exhaling. And slowly come back to center. And we're going to switch to our left hand, bringing that up. And come back to center. And just bring your hands to heart center. Thank you all for playing with me. So you don't have to do all of these, but you might pick a couple of these that might just give you a little bit of renewed energy, right? Like you didn't have to move from the chair, but you were able to just open up your spine, your body, your hips a little bit, your wrists, whatever you need to do, your neck, where we start getting locked up. And when we get locked up, that energy gets locked up inside us as well. And that's when we start getting more frustration as well. So especially when we're sitting in chairs for a lot of the day in front of the computer, whatever we can do to give ourselves this time. Now, another thing that we've talked a lot about is breathing, because that's something you might realize in your day you forget to do. That we start clenching our jaws, we start getting really annoyed or stressed out, and we start keeping it in our jaws, our hips, whatever that is, our heart races. So what we can do to make sure that we remember to breathe, and this goes along with mantras, because mantras are just intentional sayings that we choose each day of something that we want to remember to do to shift our energy. So we might say as a mantra today, just breathe. Write it on a Post-it note and put it on our computer, so when our eyes glance over it, we're like, oh yeah, I wanted to breathe today, right? And so when we do that, we can do just like we did before with our hands on our thighs, but mudras are just a way to find connection and energy as well, and that can just be bringing our pointer finger and our thumb together and just feeling that connection in our bodies. And when we decide to breathe in our chair, we can do what I did before with just 1 and 2, or we actually slow down the breath further and we count to 3. So we inhale 1, 2, 3, and retain our breath, and then we exhale 3, 2, 1, and release that breath. And then we repeat that a few times. These things don't take that long in our day. But they can make a huge difference of just like, oh yeah, I need to get back to my breath. I need to relax a little bit. Now, one of the mantras, so I'm a music person, and one of the mantras that I do to kind of just incorporate remembering a lot of these different things is I have this one that I have, beware of the grace notes. And so if you do play music, you know grace notes are these like tiny little notes in music that you can barely see, and you play them really, really fast. But if you don't play them, the music sounds completely different. And so to me, the mantra is a reminder to me to not miss those little things in the day, right? Those little observations of people's body language, the emotion that they have behind their words, not just what they're saying, but trying to understand what's behind what they're doing. And I put these things on my Instagram page as well every single week. So if there's ones that resonate, you can pull them. They're also all over the internet. But this is a big thing, and it's a simple thing that we can do. Or you can even go further and start creating a work environment to do this as well. So where you can actually hang things up that resonate with you so that when people enter your office, they're getting an experience as well of the energy you want to create there. It's kind of subliminal messaging that changes how an encounter and experience might be because they're reading those things and you're reading those things, and that might shift while you have that conversation as well. So it's really important that we figure out which tools work for us so that we can bring this into how we create mindfulness as a leader. And mindfulness as a leader is coming back into how do I stop in my day and observe what's happening with others and with myself before I actually action anything. And in our day and age, everything is in this rapid mode, but we actually aren't as productive when we're like that versus when we're very intentional about how we're going through our day and how we're responding. And I can tell you as an extrovert, that's a really hard thing for me. Like, I'm ready to go, and I have to remind myself, stop, don't answer, don't say anything, like just sit and observe for a moment so that I can understand what this person is dealing with. And this is with our team members as well. Now, being a mindful leader means that we're understanding people's individual experiences rather than a one-to-many approach. So for a lot of the work that we do, we're going into teams and saying, this is what you have to do. But from a mindfulness perspective, it's meeting with each person from an individual perspective and understanding where their fears are so that you can better guide them to the outcome that you want. And in order to do that, we have to treat people on an individual basis versus on a group basis. And that's what being a mindful leader means. Because what happens is our perception becomes reality. So even when we don't intend to come off as forceful or that you need to get certain things done, our energy can show up that way we speak, the way that we communicate, and then that's how someone thinks of us. And this really goes into how we control our personal brand, right? If we don't control it, someone else will decide what it is. If we don't control our personal brand, someone else will brand you. We have to understand that there is a perception of us that creates other people's reality. So if we want to change that as a mindful leader, we need to figure out how do we alter our own thoughts. How do we create the energy that we want to create? And by doing that, we have to go around to people from an individual perspective and understand what is it that I'm creating in that experience with them that I might not even realize I'm doing, and be open to what those answers are. And when I'm open to those answers, I can start adjusting the way I'm interacting so that I am getting the energy that I want to create in those meetings. Rather than saying it's their fault they feel that way, how can I flip it? And so it's important that when we meet with people, it's not all about work all the time. Like when I say take a mental break and go on a walk, you can have a meeting with someone, not in an office, and say, let's go out for a walk and talk about it. And when that happens, everyone's more relaxed, breathing starts happening, the brain starts releasing, and you might talk about your kids, your spouses, your friends, whatever's going on in their life, and you start creating a more intimate relationship, which is important when you're trying to achieve the results that you are trying to achieve in your jobs. The other thing is observing our own mind. So sometimes, if we listen to our thoughts, or maybe why we don't listen to our thoughts, we can be our own worst enemy. Right? Our negative self-talk, we probably wouldn't be friends with the person that's talking to us internally. So it's important for us to understand why that talk is happening inside of us, and how do we make sure that we can shift that self-talk, and is it in alignment with how people actually perceive us? Sometimes we think certain things are important that nobody else thinks is important, and we're getting hard on ourselves about things that nobody else cares about. But we don't even realize that because we're not open to understanding how someone's perceiving us, or we're not open to even thinking about, why do I care about this when I realize that there's other priorities? And I'm spending my wrong percentage of thought on something that doesn't matter to everybody else. So we are going to just do a quick little exercise, and I want you to close your eyes right now. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. And this is an exercise by Byron Katie about our thoughts. And so the first question that I want to ask you is a thought that you normally feel comes up for you at work or at home. I want you to remember that thought and ask yourself, is it true? Yes or no? That's it. And can you absolutely know that thought is true? Yes or no? And I want you to observe yourself when that thought comes up. How do you behave? How do you react? What happens when that thought comes up for you internally? And the last question is, who would you be without that thought? How would you feel? And I want you to open your eyes and go back into your conference app. So that last question, what would be true for you without that thought that came up? I want you to answer that question in the app. How would you feel? More confident, serene, not as hard on myself, less frustrated, happier, trusting, more peace, better self-worth, contentment, confident, less anxiety, less guilt. See what we do to ourselves? So, and this is the power of just these little exercises we can do in our day. If we're catching ourselves being hard on ourselves, stop, pause before we go into our next encounter and understand, is this thought true? And if I just let this go, how could I feel? And this shows that in the beginning, we're talking about all these things that don't allow us to be present, but as we see here, how much control we have in changing that internal feeling. When I talk about bliss, that maintenance of happiness, it's just small little shifts to get to that happiness feeling. So in order to think about how we put this in our day, it's important to set an intention for your day. One of the things that I noticed when I started my yoga practice is the yoga teacher would always say, what's your intention for your practice today? Set an intention. And one day I was like, I don't do that in my workday, right? At the end of the day, I feel like I know I was really busy, but I'm not sure what I actually got done. So the practice of setting an intention in the beginning of the day is saying, I'm going to get 1 to 3 things done that I need to get done before the end of the day, and I am going to clap for myself at the end of the day when I got that done, because there's no one else that's going to be happy for you or give you a sticker. Like, it's up to you to create that sense of self-worth that I did get done what I needed to get done, even if I don't know everything I did. It's important that we feel present with the people we're with so that we can create those stronger bonds in the organization, but also at home, so that we're not showing up different between home and work. We should feel like we can be authentically who we are, whether we're at home or work, and not shift that. So when we notice we are shifting that, why is that happening? Meditate on that, observe that, so that we can start feeling like we're showing up the way we want to show up at work as well, and be the person that we want to be. And a few of you had talked about multitasking in the beginning, and the thing about multitasking is it just doesn't work. Our brain is a singular focused brain. When we start multitasking, our IQ drops. So we think we're getting more done, but we can't. So when we get distracted by a notification on our phone and we're trying to get work done and we pick up that notification, because we get notifications every 3 minutes. It could be a text, an instant message, whatever, someone coming into your office. If we distract ourselves, it takes us 23 minutes to get back to the thought process we were in before. And that's a time waster. So when we work too many hours, we need to figure out, how do we take some of these things out so that we can be more present, get more things done, and not be overworking? So eliminate those distractions. Do the do not disturbs on your phone. The technology vendors have seen, software companies have seen how they've made people addicted. And their intention was for you to use their software, but not to addict people. So utilize the technology innovations that they have put in to turn those notifications off when you're in meetings, when you're encountering people as well. The other thing is building in regular breaks through your day. So instead of a 30-minute meeting, make a 25-minute meeting. Instead of an hour meeting, make a 50-minute meeting. Give yourself that time between meetings to reset. So because the thing about meetings is that if you schedule a 30-minute meeting or a 60-minute meeting, people are going to go all the way to the last second, even if they're repeating themselves. If you shorten that meeting, you are still going to get the same information that you needed to get. And you know that there's a moment, if you need to check emails and texts and all of that, that you've built that into your calendar. But you've also taken a moment of, I'm going to listen to music, I'm going to take a walk, whatever I need to do to free my brain before I go into that next experience, so that you're not rolling from experience to experience and running late all day. The other thing is noticing your energy levels throughout the day. So I know for me, when I was younger, I could work out at the end of the day. I can't do that anymore. My energy is highest in the morning. That also means that if I'm going to do individual work, it needs to be in the morning. And to keep my energy up through the day, that's when I need to start having meetings with people and start, going off of their energy to keep my energy up. So what can I do with my calendar to shift how appointments are put on my calendar? And it means we have to guard our calendar. We can't say if we block time and then someone puts that time on our calendar, well, they booked over it, I've got to go. No, you said that time was blocked. So when we steal from ourselves on those blocked calendars, what happens is we show up to that meeting pissed off, and that person doesn't know why we're pissed off because you accepted the meeting. So you've got to decide how important your stuff is compared to everyone else's. If you need to exercise in the morning in order to feel good during the day, what time are you going to block off for that? And it's non-negotiable. What time are you going to block off for your own work? And it's non-negotiable. It's not selfish, because you will actually show up better for the people around you when you feel like you're fueling yourself as well. And then prioritize your day. So what things are you not going to do today? That's the harder thing, right? What are you going to say no to? And give a response time. So if you've got people coming at you that they need other things than what you prioritize today, what are you not going to do that one thing instead of overworking yourself? Because the thing about productivity is the longer that we work, the less productive we are. So it's important that we are figuring out what is the most important things I need to do today, and then what will I do tomorrow, and then let people know when you're going to get to it so that they know that you didn't forget about them, that you care about them. It's just that there's these 3 things ahead of it. Now, I'd like to end with you thinking about the things that we've talked about and coming back to your app. Which of these mindfulness techniques could you start putting in with yourself, your team, and working on for the next 30 days? Try to do it at least once a day for the next 30 days. 5-minute meditation, disconnect, build in breaks, meditation, eliminate distractions, intentional breaks, chair yoga, prioritize and focus, breathe, 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 breathe. Take time for myself, chair yoga, decline invites, breathe and refocus. And it's really important when we decline invites that we communicate why. So that we just say, I've got something booked at this time, I can't do it. These are the times I can do instead. So that someone doesn't think you're just, being a jerk, but you're also communicating and showing that you care about the meeting, but you just can't do it then, instead of accepting it. Blocking off work time, very good. So I want you to think about this, that when we try to implement something, it takes 30 days to create a habit. And we do not have parents to monitor us, so we have to do it ourselves. So one of the techniques that I would suggest is you journal it. You put it in your phone each day. What went well about it today? What didn't go well about it today? What will I do different tomorrow? Not give up. So that you can keep getting better. And then after 30 days, you can go, is this something I want to keep in my life? Maybe not, maybe so. But if it's not, what else are you going to try? Not give up. Take the next thing that was an idea for you to try and do it for the next 30 days. So again, this is the methodology, and I'll be around at lunchtime if you have any questions on this. But the most important thing to understand is people do not remember the things you say, they remember how you make them feel and the experience that you create. And so all of these practices are ways for you to shift the energy and create a new experience with the people around you and for yourself to maintain happiness. I want to thank you very much for your attention and participation, and I hope that you'll find something to incorporate into your life. Thank you.
Awesome. We want to thank you so much for being our speaker today. A reminder, again, use the app. Make sure that we are doing our surveys in there. And I guess we do have 2 minutes. Was there any questions anyone wanted to ask before we get out of here?
Sure.
So how would you convince your boss that a 2-minute or 5-minute mindfulness break is a good thing and not just screwing around?
So, okay. Good question. So I'm going to ask the question back. What's your struggle right now with your boss where you feel like this would be an issue to bring up? Tell me what you think the issue would be to bring it up, to do it.
If you see someone that, not look particularly productive, wow, you get your face right there, right?
So, when we propose something to do with another person that might not be bought into it, we need to understand what's in it for them, for doing it. So are there issues in the meeting right now where there's combative meetings or people not paying attention or they're rushing in from another meeting where you can kind of climb onto that and say, this is an issue that I'm seeing when we're doing this or the way that we're scheduling our day. And this was a practice that I'd like us to try for 30 days. Would it be something that we can do for the next month, once a week in our meetings or whatever? There are chief mindfulness officers starting to be hired in many, many companies. And these practices are starting to be put in at the beginning of meetings. And there's a freedom of what you do with it, whether you can put a headset in, you can read a book, whatever you want to do. But if you looked up LinkedIn, Google, all these big companies that are you can even use that back-end research to support the argument of how it's created more productivity in the workplace just by putting one little practice in. Is that helpful? Okay, great.
Awesome. All right, well, that's time for today, you guys. So again, make sure you get on your app. Make sure you are putting in your surveys. And the event program is what has your PDUs. So just remember, you guys, you have to self-claim the PDUs for this event. And we are good. Everyone have a wonderful day.